Hello, everybody. This is a Red Line Review, extra low budget entertainment, and today I'm going over my top 5 favorite cooking manga and anime. Number 5 is going to be Iron Wok Jan. Now, these is all my personal preference. This isn't, what's the best or the worst. Everybody has their favorites. But I think as far as cooking anime goes and manga, you just don't see a lot of it. It's not as popular or out there. And I'm a chef myself, and then when I was going to culinary school, I always wanted to see different cooking anime so I can get ideas to make new things. And it was hard for me to even go online and search what's good cooking anime, what's a good suggestion. You don't find very many of them. But I know there's a lot of people who like them, and so in case anybody wanted to know my favorites, which you probably don't because nobody knows who the hell I am, I think it'll be a great idea to share it. So my favorite is one I found a long time ago when I was looking this up. It was Iron Walk Jan. Now I couldn't find it very well because I don't see any in the bookstores. I couldn't find any in online to read. And I found out later when I finally did find the hard copies of it in Ann Arbor, downtown, at a comic book store there, that the people who published it, which is Comics One, they went out of business, so that's why you just don't see it around much. Now, Ironbark Jan is published by Comics One, like I said. It follows Jan. Go figure. Jan is a Japanese chef who cooks Chinese food and thinks all cooking is a battle. After his father dies of cancer, and his cancer progressed to the point where he could no longer taste. So he actually doesn't die of cancer, but he commits suicide by burning his house on fire after sending Jan to go purchase medicine. And in his death, he sends Jan to learn from an old rival of his that still owns a restaurant. That way, Jan could learn at one of the best Chinese restaurants there are, and in the same time, he learns to cook for people because Jan never really made large portions before. This is shown in the first few episodes when Jan has an order for a whole lot of people, and when he makes it, it just becomes a soupy mess. Um, but Jan, it starts off mildly deep, with that backstory, but that's pretty much where it ends. It's not deep after that. Jan just competes. He cooks something interesting, but he wins every single competition. It's not that impressive. Uh, the pros is a good art style, good explanations of the food, and the cons are that it's repetitive, it's predictable, and it has very low character depth. Number 4 is going to be Cooking Chef Master Boy or Cooking Chef Ichiban. It has different names, but it's a manga and an anime. This one I watched the anime. I didn't read the manga much or manga. This is a classic one. It's probably one of the first cooking mangas and animes that came out. It follows a young boy in olden China that's chosen to be a master chef by one of the generals. And apparently, this is a time where in China where food is king and chefs ruled everything. And you don't really see this. Uh, it's described like it, but you know, really it just shows like generals and government officials are in charge, but people are just over obsessed with food. I guess think that's really the theme. Where they were saying that, oh, whoever's the best chef rules Japan. It didn't really show that. No one has real power when you're a chef, besides getting to tell people, who are other chefs, whether they're good or not. It has uh, it has over exaggerated, explanations of how the food tastes. I think that's where all of this came from. People tasting the food, and you know, when you watch other cooking animes, it shows this, or mangas, it shows this incredible feeling and daydreaming people get when they eat something. This is where all of that came from. The dishes you can actually make. I think that was a point. But when you transfer from the anime to real life, it's just it doesn't have that same kind of awesomeness that it made it look like in the anime. We would think about it as just really kind of silly. But the food's interesting. It's one you shouldn't really miss. There's good Chinese cooking if you want to learn more about Chinese cooking. The characters are cute, but the story really doesn't have any depth to it. It's repetitive. It's predictable. The guy, he does the same thing every time. He cooks usually a very humble dish that beats out somebody's more classy dish. It's pretty much how it always goes. And number three, technically it's not going to be a cooking manga, but it's going to be a food service one nonetheless. Bartender. It has a manga, anime, and actually I believe a live action show as well. Is that popular, I believe, in Japan, and it's a pretty important one. Instead of a competitions all the time, it shows more of a exaggerated problem solving with knowledgeable bartending. Though there's not much progression of the character skill. He's pretty much a Michelin star bartender. They don't bring up Michelin star, but that's just what he is. He has his things down, techniques to a perfection. He's probably one of the few people that have perfected very certain techniques. And as far as the other characters go, I believe they've only shown one other bartender to be as good as he is, or excuse me, as good as he is. His name is Ryu Sasabura, I think. He's a bartender nicknamed God's Glass, who happens to be one of the best bartenders in the world. Originally, it said that he's the best, but then it shows later that there's one other bartender in Japan who's better than he is, and that kind of hints that there might be others, but they never show him up. And he's pretty skilled, and you know he fills in at different bars. He has no real ambition to do anything. It says he wants to create God's glass, but everybody considers him God's glass anyway. So I don't really get he has no real goal. He just sits behind the bar and helps people every now and then. And at first, it's comical. He's cool. He's witty. He does silly things, but later on, he's really calm. He helps people in a very calm way, and you just don't really see him do much. He seems to be all knowing, but and sometimes he comes up with a problem. I think the last time I remember him having an issue was he had an issue with a lady who wasn't supposed to be drinking in the first place, so he didn't know how to make her a drink without giving her alcohol and still have her be happy. And that's the only last time I remember him having an issue. And that was later on, but it was just that was that one time. Every other time, it's like he's pours his drink. Somebody's problem is solved because of the ingredients in the drink, and it's hinting towards something that they need to reflect on their lives. The pros is the artwork is good. Um, Nice small stories. The cons are there's no real direction. The characters look too alike to each other in the manga. The in the main character he becomes kind of stiff and boring as more characters come in. He just they seem like they didn't know what to really do with him anymore. Number two is going to be Shokugeki Nosama. That's a manga. It just came out recently, maybe within the last year. Um, it's a newer one, so it takes a lot of stuff from the other mangas, all the other cooking mangas, a lot of the characters, especially from Hell's Kitchen and I want to say Hell's Kitchen and the Iron Chef Master Boy. It kind of steals from them in Addicted to Curry. But other than that, I mean, people always borrow. I just think it was a little heavily borrowed. It's like, making the exact same character traits as someone else and then just kind of blending them together. And it's just a little too extreme for me to enjoy it and feel like it was original. But other than that, I mean, the manga's fantastic. I can't get enough of reading it. It has food battles that settle disputes, and then whenever there's an issue between two students, they duke it out in what's called a Shokugeki, which I think translates to food war. As a culinary student myself, with the kid going to culinary school, I really appreciate the way they set things up. It's not exactly like any cooking school I've gone to, and I know he's only in high school, but I'm sure it's meant to be over exaggerated, but it's still really, really fun. And the competitive cooking mangas, this guy, he doesn't always win. He's not shown off to be the best right off the bat as soon as the manga starts. So that's one thing that's better. I like progression. He seems to progress a little bit, but it's more on the lines of he has to figure out how to overcome a challenge. The skills are already there. He just has to, his thinking has to be better. So the pros are they're good characters. It's a fun story. Great art. The cons are the character traits. They seem to have been done before. The food is generic. You're never gonna watch this, read this manga up until this point, and look at something that you have not seen on the basic cooking channel. I'm not sure if that's on purpose or because Japan itself is just not very cultured, which it isn't. Um, outside of its own culture. Um, honorable mentions are going to be Mr. Ajiko, which is about a kid who takes over his father's shop, and Hell's Kitchen, which is about a boy possessed by a demon who is forced to gain the soul of the fantastic chef or a true chef, just so the demon can eat him. But since the boy was so depressed, even though it didn't seem like he had a choice, he opted to go for the um, the bargain or deal or something. And good ones that I know other people like that I don't like myself are, of course, Yakatati Japan, and Bambino. Yakatati Japan is a shonen about a guy who has solar hands and makes bread and competes like regular shonen cooking. And then you have Bambino, which is a lot different. Bambino is very, very different because it actually follows a boy who he gets a lot of progression, but he has to learn how. It just shows how him starting in a restaurant and what life is like working in a fast-paced Italian restaurant in Japan. And I think it's good insight. It's more for adults. I just didn't get into it. That or Yakatati. And my number one favorite anime is Addicted to Curry. I love Addicted to Curry. At the point, it was my favorite manga altogether. It follows curry chef Makito Koenji as he helps a restaurant open for the daughter of his former friend and co-worker, who the co-worker doesn't he seems to know him but doesn't like him too well. But he's not in the manga for a long time. He's actually gone missing, which is why his restaurant is closing down. And this also results in comedy, perversion, romance, because Makito's alone with the girl who's a little bit younger than him. And later, Makito's true reason for becoming the best curry chef is revealed, but I'm not going to spoil it for you. But it's the backstory gets deeper, and every character has a backstory except for some of the girl's friends. But everyone else is just, I mean, they have a backstory, but they disappear fast, which is kind of gets old after a while. But the pros are the characters, the art, the backstories, and the food is. I mean, I never saw a dish that I didn't really want to try or incorporate. Just the tech, he uses really good techniques that are really nice. You feel like you've learned something after you've read it, as opposed to Shokugeki, where you saw that he did it really well, but it was nothing interesting at all about the dish. You'll see him make, an omelet, or you'll see him make something humble. They always make something humble, but it doesn't, it's not as impressive as seeing something humble and interesting like they do in Cooking Chef Master Boy, where he makes something that's simple, but it's an interesting twist to it. And the cons are it's pretty repetitive. Makito's overskilled from the very beginning, but it shows that he's like that through hard and rigorous training. It's not that he's just a genius. So I like that. Well, thank you for listening to this. I hope you all get to tune in if I make another video. Uh, once again, this is Red Line Extra Low Budget Entertainment. This is coming from Metro Detroit. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to write below.